Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachamine Murgasesha Shunyavadi Bhaktivedanta Vishatamine. Hare Krishna. Before we begin our recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to our family visiting from Kentucky, Bhakta Blake, Bhakteen Rachel, and their son Gideon, who I've heard is also called Balaram. And then a long-time friend of ours visiting from Chicago, Bhakta Adam, and his wife Fatima. They're just here for a few more hours. They came yesterday and short visit. Okay, so today we are continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto entitled The Status Quo, and we're on chapter 2 entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Today's text is number 4. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo Samahurtam abuttushnim. Samahurtam abuttushnim. Samahurtam abuttushnim. Samahurtam abuttushnim. Krishnangri sudaya brisham. Krishnangri sudaya brisham. Krishnangri sudaya brisham. Krishnangri Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Nimagna sadhu nirvrita. Nimagna sadhu nirvrita. Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Samahurtam abuttushnim.
Samahurtam abuttushnim.
Krishnangri sudhaya brisham.
Krishnangri sudhaya brisham.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Samahurtam abuttushnim.
Samahurtam abuttushnim.
Krishnangri sudhaya brisham.
Krishnangri sudhaya brisham.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Samahurtam abuttushnim.
Samahurtam abuttushnim.
Krishnangri sudhaya brisham.
Krishnangri sudhaya brisham.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Nimagna sadhu nivritaha.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Samahurtam abuttushnim.
Samahurtam abuttushnim.
Krishna
Krishnangri sudhaya brisham.
Tirena bhakti yogena.
Tirena bhakti yogena.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Samohurtim avutushnim.
Samohurtam avutushnim.
Krishnangri sudaya vrisham.
Krishnangri sudaya vrisham.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Tirena bhakti yogena.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita. Samohurtam avutushnim. Krishnangri sudaya vrisham. Tirena bhakti yogena. Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Samuhurtam avutushnim.
Samohurtam avutushnim.
Krishnangri sudha vishnam.
Krishnangri sudaya vrisham.
Tirvitnya bhakti yogena.
Tirena bhakti yogena.
Nimagna
Magna sadhu nirvita.
Nimagna sadhu nirvrita.
Anything else? Okay, word for word synonyms, please repeat. Saha. Udava. Muhurtam. For a moment. Abut. Became. Tushnim. Dead silent. Krishna Angri. The lotus feet of the Lord. Sudhaya. By the nectar. Vrisham. Well-natured. Tivrena. By very strong. Bhakti yogena. Devotional service. Nimagna. Absorbed in. Sadhu. Good. Nirvrita. Fully in love. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. For a moment, he, Uddhava, remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy. And he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Before we read the purport, maybe we'll just do a quick catch-up about the context here. Uddhava is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. He's actually a cousin of Krishna and a good friend. He lives in Dwaraka, that's his residence. Krishna considers him such a confidant that he uses him to deliver messages. For example, he used Uddhava to travel to Vrindavan to deliver a message to the gopis and all the Vrajavasis that, yes, I am remembering you. When Krishna was in Dwarka, he sent a message to console the Vrajavasis. Yes, I'm remembering you. I shall return. So Uddhava is a very confidential devotee of the Lord. So, just as Lord Brahma and the demigods had appealed to Kshirodakashayi Vishnu at the ocean of milk, that you please appear in this world, because the world is overburdened by, thousands and thousands of demonic military forces. You please appear in this world to Pritranaya Sadhunam Vinashtaya Chadushritam, to rescue the innocent and to annihilate the demons. So So when Brahma and the demigods appealed like that, Krishna indeed appeared. Similarly, when Lord Brahma understood that the Lord's mission of killing the demonic was actually finished, his Dwarka Leela was also, very involved with killing demoniac forces. So Brahma and the demigods then appeared to Krishna, and they said, "My dear Lord, your mission is accomplished. Now it's time you can leave. You can wrap up your Leela here." So taking that note, Krishna did indeed decide to leave this planet. So he went to a secluded place near the Yamuna River, and there he sat under a banyan tree. And there's a whole Leela how he departed. But while he was there in a secluded place, his confidential devotee Uddhava arrived. And he wanted to leave too, because I don't want to live without Krishna. How can I live without Krishna? But Krishna had another mission for Uddhava. Just as he previously had sent Uddhava to deliver a message to the Brajavasis, now he wanted to use Uddhava to deliver a message to the great sages living at Badarik Ashram. So he spent some time instructing Uddhava in the details of self-realization and devotional service. These instructions are found in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and are now called the Uddhava Gita. Just like we have Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's instructions to Arjuna, we have Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto. So he gave very detailed instructions about deity worship and bhakti yoga to Uddhava. When Krishna was finished with those instructions, he disappeared from the planet. Now Uddhava is heartbroken. Krishna's gone. And he's lamenting. But he has a mission. He has to go to Badarik Ashram and deliver transcendental knowledge to the great sages there. Before he departs for Badarik Ashram, wandering through that area comes Vidura. Vidura, an uncle of the Pandavas. Vidura was on pilgrimage. And when he came across Uddhava near the Yamuna River, he of course recognized him. And Vidura was in great anxiety. Why was Vidura in great anxiety? Because he had just come from Prabhasa Setra, and there he learned that Krishna left the planet. And the whole Yadu dynasty, all of Vidura's relatives were gone. And he comes across Uddhava, and Vidura immediately starts questioning Uddhava. That how's Lord Krishna? How's Lord Balaram? How's this relative and that relative? Knowing very well that they had all departed. But he needed to hear it again, just to console himself. So, Vidura then says to Uddhava, "You please narrate the messages of Godhead to me. You please teach me what Krishna taught you. Please narrate the Leela and activities and teachings of Krishna." So upon Vidura requesting Uddhava to speak on transcendental subject matters, Uddhava, it says in today's verse, fell into a trance. So it says here, the translation says that Uddhava remained dead silent. He couldn't even speak. His body did not move. And he became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet. So now we'll read Srila Prabhupada's purport. On the inquiry by Vidura about Krishna, Uddhava appeared to be awakened from slumber. Now this is an interesting sentence. We just read in the translation that Uddhava became frozen, his body didn't move, no words came out of his mouth. And Prabhupada's saying, Uddhava appeared to be awakened, as if from slumber. But it almost seems opposite to us. He was active, he was talking, and now all of a sudden he's dead silent and he can't move a muscle. So how is that being awakened from slumber? Seems like he went into slumber. So Krishna answers that at the end of chapter 2 in Bhagavad Gita. He tells Arjuna that the common person, one who's not a transcendentalist, they are very awake and enlivened when there's external things going on, when there's subject matters for sense gratification, when there's opportunity to engage in sense objects, etc. The common person, they're very enlivened, they're awake. Whereas the self-controlled person, when that situation arises, it's like night for them. They go internally. They don't get absorbed in the externals. And conversely, when there's not opportunity for materialistic engagement, the common person, it's like night for them. They become dull. They attend Bhagavatam class and they go to sleep. But for the transcendentalists, that's the time of awakening. They become enlivened. That there's nothing to do externally. We can just hear and chant about Krishna. Wow. So like that, Uddhava, Prabhupada says, appears to have awakened from slumber. Means he was active externally, but as soon as he was requested to speak on the topics of Krishna, he became dead silent and his body didn't move. Because he entered that state of actual wakefulness, of being absorbed in devotional service. So it's an interesting sentence Prabhupada starts the purport with. Continuing, Prabhupada says, Uddhava appeared to regret that he had forgotten the lotus feet of the Lord. Of course, he never forgot the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus he again remembered the lotus feet of the Lord, and remembered all his transcendental loving service unto him. And by so doing, he felt the same ecstasy that he used to feel in the presence of the Lord. We hear this about the Brajavasis, that when Krishna left Vrindavan to travel to Dwarka, Mathura and then Dwarka, that they were suffering in the fire of separation. But those feelings of separation were actually ecstasy. The pain of separation was actually ecstasy. Why? Because in those feelings of separation, they were experiencing Krishna. In his aprakat form, unmanifested, not physically in front of their eyes, but in their hearts. They were feeling the same ecstasy, if not greater ecstasy, than when they were face to face with Krishna, touching his body, kissing him, etc. So this is the mystery of emotion for Krishna, that even in so-called separation, the real devotee is in ecstasy. Because the Lord is absolute, there's no difference between his remembrance and his personal presence. Thus Uddhava remained completely silent for a moment. But then he appeared to be going deeper and deeper into ecstasy. Feelings of ecstasy are displayed by highly advanced devotees of the Lord. There are 8 kinds of transcendental changes in the body: tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, etc. And all are manifested by Uddhava in the presence of Vidura. End of Srila Prabhupada's purport. This chapter is entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. It's a fantastic title. Just on that title we could give a whole class. Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami, earlier in the Bhagavatam, gives a very important instruction to Parikshit Maharaj, who is getting ready to leave his body. He tells Parikshit Maharaj, Aitavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishthya Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smriti. That it doesn't matter how you get there. Whether you're doing it by analytical study of matter and spirit, whether you're doing it by mystic yoga practices, whether you're doing it by perfecting the Varnashrama rules and regulations, practices, dharma, it doesn't matter how you get there. But you got to get to this point. What is that point? Ante, in the end, Narayana Smriti, remembrance of the personality of Godhead. And this, he says, is Janma Labha. Janma Labha, the ultimate achievement of human form of life. We all have some, I might have 10 years to live, or I might have 100 more years to live. But we've got some goal that we're looking for. We want to achieve. If I can achieve that, I want to become a gold medalist in the Olympics. Yes, that would make my life, perfect. Or I want to become the wealthiest person on planet Earth. Or I want to have 3 PhDs. Whatever it is, people dream of, what's the highest thing you could achieve before death comes? Shukadeva Goswami says to Parikshit Maharaj, nonsense! None of that is important. There's only one goal, which is considered the ultimate goal of human life that no other species can attain. Ante Narayana Smriti. To remember the Lord at the time of death. And guess what? There's a caveat. You can't remember the Lord at the time of death. You can't. Unless you've practiced remembering the Lord every day of your life. Practice, practice, practice. Because practice makes perfect. And before practice makes perfect, practice makes improvement. And the more we practice, we improve. And the more we keep on practicing, we achieve perfection. That is the goal of life. Ante Narayana Smriti. Well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to practice remembering Krishna? So Parikshit also receives another instruction from Shukadeva Goswami. Does anybody recognize the third line of today's verse? Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. It also appears earlier in the Bhagavatam, one very important verse. Anybody? Yes. Shukadeva Goswami says, if you're a sarvakami, one whose heart is just filled with all sorts of material desires, or you may be an akama kami, one whose heart is devoid of material desires, or you may be a moksha kami, one whose heart's desire is liberation. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are. Just drop that, ignore that. It doesn't matter what you are. You must engage in Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Bhakti Yoga, devotional service. Not any old Bhakti Yoga. Tivrena Bhakti Yoga. Tivrena means strong, concentrated, serious, single-pointed. Ohaitikiya pratihata. Tivrena means ohaitikiya pratihata. It's unmotivated. it's uninterrupted, single-pointed. That if one practices Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, no matter how materialistic your heart might be, you don't need to wait to be qualified. Wherever you're at, just engage in Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. And what will that do? That will allow you to practice remembering Krishna and achieve the ultimate goal of life, Ante Narayana Smriti. So Uddhava, as exemplified by the ecstatic symptoms that he uncontrollably exhibited in front of Vidura, Uddhava has achieved that platform of pure remembrance of Lord Krishna. Now there's different levels of remembrance. We might say, well, I remember Krishna. You know? There's 5 levels of remembrance. The first level is called smarana. Smarana means the neophyte devotee. We try to pay attention, but we're totally distracted. Right? After so many years and decades, we try to chant one round of 108 attentive mantras, and we can't do it. Maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mantras, and then boop, distraction. 10, 20 mantras, boop, distraction. That's called smarana. You're trying to recall, you're trying to remember, but it's not meditation, because it's constantly being broken and interrupted. The next stage is called dharana. Dharana means now, by the strength of the holy name, one can pay attention without interruption. So, for example, one on the stage of dharana could chant 16 straight rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and not be interrupted. Can you imagine? You know, we're not even there yet. Speaking for myself, sorry, perhaps you are. You know? Wow, 2 hours of like non-stop meditation without any interruption? That's called dharana. That's only stage 2. Stage 3 is called dhyana. Dhyana means you can do a long meditation, not just a measly 2 hours. You can do a long meditation. It's very concentrated and strong without interruption. Like maybe you can chant 64 rounds, 8 hours, no interruption. Unimaginable. I can't even imagine that. Then the 4th stage is called anusmriti. This is where one is constantly 24/7, always in remembrance, without any distraction, fully absorbed in Krishna. Means even when it's time to do so-called mundane activities, clean the house, drive the kids to school, you know, whatever it is, work at the office on the computer, whatever it is, mow the lawn, one's always remembering Krishna. So instead of like chanting Hare Krishna and having mundane things interrupt your thought process, this is the opposite. You're trying to do so-called mundane things, but remembrance of Krishna is always there, and sometimes you can't even concentrate on your material duties because you're fully absorbed in Krishna. That's called anusmriti. Then the final stage, 5th stage, is called samadhi, or trance. This is the stage Uddhava is on. And this stage marks, if one comes to that stage, samadhi, that marks the fact that they're no longer a sadhaka. They're no longer a devotee in practice or a devotee in training. They are now a siddha, a perfected devotee, who's either on the stage of bhava or prema. They're on the stage of bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. And this trance, or samadhi, is not something that one invokes by their own efforts. Rather, it is the Lord himself who appears on the lotus of their heart and makes his presence known. Here I am. How are you going to forget me? I'm right in your face. This is the stage of the siddha, on the stage of samadhi, that Krishna himself, or whatever Narayan Murti that devotee is absorbed in, appears in the heart of that devotee and reciprocates with that devotee for their sincere efforts in Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. So this is the stage Uddhava's come to, and it's time for him to speak to Vidura, the transcendental knowledge that he's learned. So we'll continue tomorrow with text number 5, and we'll hear more about how that transpires, how ultimately Uddhava is going to excuse himself from Vidura and say that I'm actually on my way to Badrika Ashram, but right here, just a few feet away, is the elder personality, Maitreya. So I'm going to defer to Maitreya, because he was there when Krishna was instructing me. He was standing nearby. He heard everything, just like I heard, he heard. So now Maitreya will do the service of teaching you, Vidura, exactly what I heard, and I'll be on my way to Badrika Ashram. So the take-home point is, we have to practice Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, single-pointed, strong, serious, concentrated devotional service where we don't allow anything to distract us. But we're so neophyte, our attraction to Krishna is so pitiful that we allow ourselves to get distracted by all the externals. Even in the devotee community, we find externals that are not Krishna conscious to become absorbed in, to distract us from our single-pointed mission. So practice, 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 beginning with our japa. So we'll stop there, see if there's any discussion.
That was a very nice class. I just was remembering that there was an expression that devotees used to have when we would first meet someone. We'd say, "So, what's your program, Prabhu?" And now, of course, that word "program" has a whole new meaning to all of our lives. It was pre-computer, but that meant that because Prabhupada tried to design his ISKCON for his disciples, although he did tell Ramananda and Satrup and to continue working, doing these jobs. Him and Jack in the very beginning days, but ultimately he was trying to engage everyone that they were involved in helping to typeset the press or edit or do some proofreading or paintings, artwork, or then the cooking for Krishna. He was trying to train that it's not just a question of chanting, but I'm thinking about, I'm hearing about, and then philosophically, even we used to say, before drinking water, we would say, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. And if you didn't do that, everybody looked at you like, oh, who are you? No, but that's the point you were making very nicely. It's just, I'm not saying it's not happening now, but there was that feeling in those days that, you just, I'm going to be doing Harinam for 6 hours today. Then I'm going to come back and do the arti and come away. It was a very tight program.
Mm-hmm.
They did college preaching. You had a program. Now of course we have different situations because I have children and this and that. But even then we had our own schools.
Mm-hmm.
For better or worse, we made our attempts. Anyway, it's just
so there's many challenges. See, Maya has a job.
Yeah.
And she actually does her job really well.
Yeah.
She doesn't cut corners. So her job is that, see all these people, these fledgling bhaktas, they all want to go back to Godhead. Well, you have a job, Maya Devi. You make sure that nobody goes back to Godhead unless they perfect Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. We don't want this half-baked Bhakti Yoga, this mixed, diluted Bhakti Yoga, this part-time Bhakti Yoga. To get into Goloka, Krishna says, you gotta be my 100% Tifrena Bhakti Yogi. So Maya Devi does her job very nicely. It's a thankless task, but she tries to distract us. Here's some householder life. Does that distract you? Here's some money, some position, some comfort. Does that distract you? Here's some quarrels, some conspiracies, some political, agendas. Does that distract you?
Worldly affairs.
We get all absorbed and, oh my God, the world's going to end tomorrow, and the American dollar's going to crash tomorrow, and, blah, blah, blah. A zillion and one excuses to be distracted. And we allow ourselves to be distracted. I didn't allow myself to be distracted. I was a victim. I'm a victim of so many onslaughts of material nature. I'm a victim. It's her fault, it's his fault that I can't be Krishna conscious. No, it's our fault that we can't be Krishna conscious because there's a big, bright, full moon in the sky, so beautiful and so attractive. But we can't appreciate it because there's a whole bunch of gray, ugly clouds blocking our vision. So we can't appreciate the full moon. Similarly, there's Krishna, his holy name, his Leela, etc., his service, his entourage. But we can't be attracted because we've got all these gray clouds blocking our vision. And what are those gray clouds? Our anarthas. Our anarthas that we're harboring, that we haven't seriously been purified of because we haven't maybe taken to the process. The doctor gives you medicine to get rid of your blockages and whatever, but you don't take the medicine properly. You don't follow the diet. Whose fault is it that you're ill? So like that, it doesn't matter. Even you have tons of anarthas in your heart. You've got tons of material desires in your heart. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Put yourself in a situation where you're 24/7 forced to remember Krishna through different types of devotional service, different types of, practices. We should be intense. We should help each other. You're my best friend. We love each other by helping each other remember Krishna, not by helping each other be distracted. Hey, how's it going, Prabhu? How's your mission of Ante Narayana Smriti going? Not, hey, how's your mission of making money? How's your business going, Prabhu? Are you making money? How's this? It's, how's your mission of the human form of life going? How can I help you?
What category did Ajamil fit in?
Ajamil was chanting Nam Abbas. He was not on Shuddhanam platform, therefore he was not a Siddha, he was a
But he got
sadhaka.
that mercy, right?
Yeah, he got mercy. He got mercy. But he was a sadhaka. He was chanting Nam Abbas, not Shuddhanam. Shuddhanam is chanted by a Siddha, not by a sadhaka.
Wasn't the mercy he got too that he got a second chance, he got kind of live again by the river Ganges so that he could actually try and chant well.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going back to Godhead, that we go to the next level. Even if it means leaving this body, taking another body, that is going back to Godhead, staying on the conveyor belt, if you will. Thank you. Anything else? Otherwise we'll stop there. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.